Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining. I'm just going to give it one last minute and then we may make an official start. Rachel, Mark, Louise, I believe you're going to be speaking first, so do feel free to leave your video on. Rachel, do feel free to turn your video off if you would like to. And obviously I will introduce you at the appropriate moment. Thank you for joining. Just to say, everybody, a couple of housekeeping issues. A few people have asked about slides and videos. We are recording the session. You will be sent a copy of the presentation afterwards. Obviously, that's something you can then watch again. It will include all the useful links. You'll see copies of the slide within that video. We'll also be sending you some follow-up information as well. As mentioned a few times already, there is an online chat available. Please do post your questions. Please do post your thoughts. Again, there will be an opportunity at the end, hopefully, for the panelists to answer some of those questions. And Anna, my colleague, and myself will be answering those questions as we go through as well. So with all that said, we will make a start. We really do appreciate you joining us today. We realise, as with every year, but this year even more than ever, what a busy time it is to be a teacher. I know lots of you are joining from the UK at the end of a busy day. We appreciate we've got many guests today joining internationally as well and from different time zones. So again, if it's very late in the evening or very early in the morning, we do really appreciate you joining us today. I'm Simon. I'm one of the Pobble founders. I've spent the last 16 months, I believe, on Zoom, telling people all about what we do and running webinars and running training sessions. And we really made the decision just over a month ago to put on these webinars as a place where not just I could speak about Pobble, but actually we could share some expertise from brilliant teachers and school leaders that are just doing wonderful things to improve writing in their schools. And that was really the idea of these webinars. And we really appreciate you signing up in such huge numbers to come along tonight. Now, for those of you that haven't heard of Pobble before, and I suspect most of you will have heard of Pobble before, I'm just going to share my screen very briefly, just to give you a very bit of context on what Pobble is. Pobble is a writing platform. We work with schools all around the world. It's always been about supporting teachers with good quality content while also inspiring children to write by turning them into a published author. And really the graphic on the screen in a way represents 8 years of lots of hard work, really unpicking what happens in brilliant classrooms to help turn children into the best writer that they can be. And we appreciate for some children, writing is very difficult. There is at the other end of the scale, of course, some very talented writers. And we're very fortunate at Pobble to see examples of those pieces of writing that they produce every single day through the work that we do. But what that means is as an organization, and you'll hear some real life examples of how these resources and products are used as we go through the session today, as we've really started to unpick where as I guess an ed tech company, we can best support you as classroom teachers and school leaders. And that really goes from the very beginning of the journey of what do we write about? And many of you will have joined today knowing about things like Pobble 365. Perhaps you've been into Pobble to look at one of the 300,000 examples of children's work that we've got as a starting point. We realize that's really, really important. Now, along the way, of course, we have to prepare children to write. And again, within the Pobble platform, we've developed our own lesson builder. We provide things like success criterias, word banks, all about providing children with the tools that they need to produce their best piece of work. Now, of course, in writing, a lot of that work comes from review, from editing, from getting feedback. And again, what Pobble's been able to offer through a grant that we recently received from an EdTech Innovation Fund is to develop a set of pupil tools to support things like peer and self-assessment. And that also supports children that have obviously have to access learning at home, which of course has been for lots of children over the last 12 or so months, but also moving forward for things like homework, interventions, catch-up programs, etc. And then finally, of course, what we really believe in Pobble is that children produce their best when they believe that their writing is going to go somewhere. And I believe Mark in particular, and I'm certain Rachel will mention this as well, that one of the things we really believe at Pobble is providing children with a real audience and purpose. So in a way, that image is our vision of what we believe turns a child into a good writer. It's probably the types of things that lots of you are already doing in your classroom. But what we really wanted to do tonight was to bring some of those ideas, some of those resources, some of those practical things that brilliant teachers and school leaders are doing in their school to life, which is why we invited along our guest panelists today. So first of all, I would like to introduce you to Louise. Now, Louise is joining us straight from school, directly from a staff meeting. So she isn't able to share any slides, but instead she's going to just talk to you about some of the wonderful things that she does as a brilliant English leader. Now, Louise has worked with Pobble. She's produced some of the brilliant ideas on our website, some of the brilliant resources. But first and foremost, she's just a brilliant practitioner, one of the best English teachers I've seen. And I'm really looking forward to her sharing with you today some of the things that she does in her role as a classroom teacher, but also some of the things she considers in her role as supporting English within the school as well. So after that big build up, Louise, I will hand over to you. And of course, everybody, if you do have any questions for Louise as we go through, please do feel free to post those questions into the chat. Louise, over to you.
Thanks very much, Simon, or not so much, I don't know. That was a pretty big introduction. Yes, so I don't know whether anybody's actually seen me on any of the photographs or anything that we've done with Pobble before, whether I've been in your school before over the last few years, but I have transitioned back into the classroom, which is my first love. And I do remember obviously talking a lot about how to use Pobble in the classroom as though I were in the classroom. And now I'm back in the classroom, I can honestly say that I am using Pobble in all the different ways that I told people that you could use Pobble. So I'm really happy that I wasn't one of those people who kind of just said those things and then came in and didn't put it into practice. One of the things that I always used to say to anybody when I was doing any kind of Pobble talks or I was on the road and teaching the writing to different children was that Pobble is a fantastic addition to my writing tool belt or my toolkit. It was never seen as a scheme. It was something that I could dip into at any part of the writing journey to support all my pupils, whether they were exceptional writers or reluctant writers or writers who just struggled. And even though they tried, they just found it very difficult. And I just thought, I always used to say that it's one thing that you can tap into in lots of different ways, and it's varied, and you can help every child become the writer that they're meant to be. And I still stand by that now, and that, this is the way that I'm using it. So I am just going to talk at you, so be frantically writing any notes and of course ask questions afterwards about any particular things that I mentioned, but I'm only going to talk about the ways that I've used Pobble this year since I've come back into the classroom in my class. And I'm just going to start with Pobble 365, which is a well-known favourite to, I imagine, thousands and thousands of people around the world. So I imagine all you lot know about Pobble 365. It's probably what brought you to the platform in the first place. Within our year group in year 5, we have a starter task every single morning to settle the children as they come in. And I know that's something that's quite popular throughout many schools across the world, actually, but as well as England. And we have on a Monday, Tuesday and Friday, a particular English focus. So on Monday, we have a vocabulary focus. And so with Pobble 365, straight away, I have some fantastic images that I can use and the story starters. And I always used to say that the story starters are fantastic because of the language that's used in them. And it helps, for us to feed that language to all the children. And the more we can feed them with language, the better that their writing becomes and the more that they use it. And it just becomes part of that life. So every single Monday, we have this vocabulary focus, and it can be about anything. So I don't restrict the type of language. I just find a really good quality picture. Of course, there's lots of them. One that I think will capture my class on that particular day, or something that I'm feeling, I quite like myself. We'll use that image, or we'll just use a story starter. And I ask them to create synonyms and antonyms for specific words that I've highlighted out of the story starter. And then they will either create a sentence, or some of my more avid writers will create a paragraph or two in the time that they've got. So it's quite an open-ended task, but with a vocabulary focus. And when I ask a few of them to share what they've done, so I randomly pick, I use my lollipop stick, so every time it's somebody different, I ask them to share their writing, and we really hone in on the vocabulary. So although other things might be brilliant or other things might not be brilliant, the vocabulary on that Monday morning is really our focus, and that's something that we celebrate, then we will put those words around the room if we think that it will relate to anything that we're writing about in our English unit, or things that we want to use in our language, in our conversations in that particular day, or it might even link to science or our history topic. So we keep it as open-ended as we can. So that's one thing that we use Pobble 365 for every Monday at this moment in time. Every Tuesday, we have a reading comprehension focus. So again, Pobble 365 is like my saviour. Because of the story starters, they are of a length that the children can read very quickly. It literally takes them, sort of 2 or 3 minutes to read through it. And then I have a maximum of 5 questions. They start with easy to harder and more in-depth. So we've got a couple of retrieval questions in there. I sometimes ask my own questions, or sometimes the questions that are already on the Pobble 365 image slide, the activity, I will use those, but I tend to look at them first, and sometimes I'll reword them depending on whether they're suitable or challenging or not challenging for the children in my class. So that's on a Tuesday. On Fridays, we always have a SPAG focus, and I've actually mixed it up. So sometimes I will use a Pobble 365 image, and I'll use the sentence challenge, or I might use the 6 sentence. So it might be that I want them to understand a particular SPAG focus, so whether it's a punctuation or something to do with grammar, and the sentence challenge itself helps me to teach that or to go over that. Or it might be something that I want them to apply, in which case I use the 6 sentence. So that's just the basic sentence. They will then look at that basic, look at the image, and then they will create a sentence based on the criteria that I give them, and it will be a very narrow focus. So it might be parenthesis, or it might be comma after a subordinate clause, something that I'm recapping, or something that we're looking at in the English unit. But I've also used Waggles as well. So I will look for a really good piece of writing on the Pobble website, so under the exemplars. And if I can find something that is suitable that I want to share with the children, I will ask them to identify it, or I will ask them to spot the errors of that particular focus. Spelling's a big one. I like them to see that other children in other schools obviously make the same mistakes that they do, and that it's quite common. And it just sort of alleviates the pressure of the reluctant writers and the children who find it tricky. They can, sort of have a kinship to some of those other children, and we'll focus on that. So Pobble 365 mainly, but I have used some of the pieces of writing, either exemplars for something that I want them to look at that is a good example, or sometimes I'll just find some that have got common errors. So that's my Monday, Tuesday, and my Fridays sorted for my board task. And I just find it really simple and easy to pull those out. And the children genuinely really enjoy looking at different images, and they like the consistency, but also the variety of what we're doing. Within my actual lesson, so when I'm teaching, obviously, the writing or the writing journey, we actually use book studies. So although I know that there are great lessons on Pobble that have particular themes, we do everything by a book. So I dip into Pobble in a different way. I don't use the lessons that are there. What I do use are the starters. So the starters don't have to be anything to do with my book. I just need that particular objective. And the starters are there, and they're brilliant because they're so short, and I can obviously edit the slides once I've saved it into my lesson. So I've obviously been through all the year 5 ones, and I can use those for the new learning, but I also dip into some of the old ones because everybody knows that, doesn't matter whether they're in year 5 or year 6, we still need to work on the commas, we still need to work on the apostrophes. So I dip into the starters at the beginning of every session, and all I do is I just search for it, find the objective that I need, and then I will adapt it to either link a little bit more to the book that we're looking at, or I might just keep it completely open and leave it as it is, and just edit some of the details so it's completely appropriate for my specific cohort. The lessons themselves, though, I find the fact that I've got the Pobble presentation builder, if that's what we call it, just such a lifesaver. It saves me so much time. I always used to say in some of the presentations that I used to do when I went around schools that it would save you time, but I didn't realise just how much time it would save me, because PowerPoint is what I use for some of the other lessons, and it takes forever just to make things look as good as they do in Pobble, which I'm not even sure I can do. I'm not exactly a tech wizard, so the fact that Pobble just has everything there on the slides and it just puts it together in such a uniformed, beautiful way, I find fantastic. I have got some favourite slides though. So of course it saves me time, but the favourites. So the word bank slide I love. I use it for vocabulary, obviously, with it being a word bank, that seems to be the obvious one. But I also use it as kind of word classing sort, because you can have the different columns. So I'll put, we've got adjectives, or we've got adverbs, or whatever. I can just do a word class sort, or we've got tenses. And with it being color coded in columns, I like that. I like the fact that you can randomize it as well. So they are color coded, but it's all random, and the children have to kind of put them together in pairs. And that's the way that I use it. I also use it for spellings. So we're trying to, one of our strategies at the moment is, can children identify the correctly spelled word? And we can have 3 options. So one of them is spelled correctly in one column, and then they can just look across, and it's just really nice and easy for them to see the 3 options. So I just love that slide, and all I have to do is type in, put a comma, and it's done for me, and it looks amazing. The exercise slide I use in pretty much all of my lessons. If I haven't used a starter lesson, I will build my own and use the exercise slide, which has really helped, particularly with missing relative clauses in year 5. So I've used the exercise slide for that. I know there's so many other ways that I can use it, but I seem to always kind of revert to relative clauses with the exercise slide. So that's what I use for my specific lessons. Just recently, just caveat this a bit, we don't have iPads in our school. We only have Chromebooks, and we have a slot for our ICT lesson, and we have a Monday morning slot for an extra. So it's not very much. And obviously with everything that's been going on at the moment, we've been reluctant to kind of break from the norm. However, we had a researching session a couple of weeks ago, and the children have started to get used to using Pobble at home, which I'll talk about in a minute. And the internet web link slide. So I've obviously used that before, because you can just pop that in there. But being able to send the lesson to the children and have them see the same links that I had, so that they could research and take notes for the report that we were writing about, the climate rebels, was a dream. I have never, ever taught a research lesson that was a dream before. And I'm sure everybody here, the Wi-Fi goes down or something. Well, this was maybe 10 years ago, but the Wi-Fi goes down, or the children type in the wrong letter that you've given them, or the links just don't work for some reason because they've not typed them in properly. Having the lesson there that I sent the children, so they all logged into Pobble in pairs on their Chromebooks, opened the lesson, and they literally saw what I saw. So it was in front of them. They weren't looking at the main screen. And they clicked on the link, and it took them to exactly the same website that I was on. And then we were able to get into the work within a few minutes of the lesson starting, as opposed to trying to find the websites, the children typing in ridiculously slowly or getting it wrong. So the website link slide is fantastic for lessons, but it's also amazing if you want to do a research lesson and send the children them that as well. I thought that was a dream. I use the YouTube slide a lot in my lessons. Of course, we've a lot of film clips. So the fact that it's embedded into my lesson, I just love, instead of it opening another tab.
Louise, sorry
Yeah.
to interrupt you. I'm just going to have to give you just half a minute more. And for those people asking questions, okay, I am going to direct you at the end to some useful links and showcase very quickly at the end some of the resources that Louise mentioned. Sorry, Louise, I'm mindful of everybody's time.
I've just got a couple more things to say. So, success criteria slide, we use that all the time. We use that for peer assessment, for self-assessment, and I use it to mark against. Homework has been salvation. So being able to send the children homework, and I link that with Pobble News now. So they get Pobble News as their homework. And they love the fact that it's varied. So they've got freedom of choice to write, and it's more creative. And the fact that they can type now and send that back to me, and I can just publish that. So we've been publishing more just because of that feature, which is fantastic. Waggles, I love. So I use Waggles sometimes as what they are good for, and we identify the features of a whole text, or I sometimes just look at the language, or what's actually probably the most powerful is finding pieces with errors that are similar to mine. Last week we used the commenting tool to peer assess. So I sent them a lesson, I sent them published pieces within a lesson, so the children could open the pieces that I wanted them to, and they were able to comment on each other's work and give feedback, and then they edited their own based on the comments. And then lastly, this is nothing to do with teaching writing, but this half term we have begun a writing assembly in our classroom. So we've got 2 year 5s and they come into mine, and I've got 9 children who rotate now, and they do assembly every 3rd week. They share our school Pobble page, they announce the published authors, and they share the comments, but they also pick their favourite piece of work from a panel child from our school, share it, and lots of children give lots of feedback on it that's really positive. And they also choose a non-panel piece to share it as well, just to raise the kind of love of writing and reading together. And the kids, it's completely pupil led, and they just love it.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Louise. You could probably imagine, everyone, Louise could probably fill hours talking about Pobble, and she did a very good job of, in 10 minutes or so, condensing some of those ideas. I asked Louise just to speak because you can imagine clicking around the screen and showing you all those things would be very difficult and would take much longer. But I will showcase a couple of the tools at the end. Most importantly, I will send you some short videos so you can actually see the tool in action, all the editing, all the slide types that Louise mentioned. So in a moment, I will share that in the link. Thanks so much, Louise. So racing on very quickly, my next panelist is Mark Piplado. Mark originally came across Pobble, I believe, in Dubai. He then moved over to Scotland. I'm sure he's going to tell you a little bit about his journey. I know that Mark has prepared a few slides, which you can see loading up onto the screen now. And I know that he's going to cover a number of different aspects of how he's improved writing in his school, again, using some of the tools already maybe mentioned by Louise. So Mark, without further ado, I will hand over to you.
Yep, is that looking good? Everyone hear me and see and what have you?
We can see your screen. I can't see you, Mark.
All right, okay. That's probably even better then, that you can't see me. So I'll talk a bit about me. So my name is Mark Piplado. I'm a class teacher at Aberhill Primary School in Scotland, and I just wanted to share with you my Pobble journey and how I came to encounter Pobble and how Pobble has enhanced what I do in the classroom for the learners that I teach. So one of the main things for using Pobble that came with for me was the fact it gives you purpose, the fact that it gives the writers a purpose for the children a purpose for writing in the classroom. One of the things for me in the area that I teach in, it's an area of quite high social deprivation, and sometimes engaging learners in what you want to achieve in your classroom can be challenging, and trying to give them something that gives them a purpose for writing and a purpose for doing anything in the classroom can be challenging. They don't see the value of what it is that you're trying to teach them, and giving them a why for their learning can be incredibly challenging. So for me, Pobble gave me the chance to give my writers in my class, my learners in my class, a purpose, and it gave them a purpose for writing. And the prospect of becoming a published author was quite an exciting prospect for my class. So once we began our Pobble journey, the children were unaware of how Pobble worked or how Pobble was able to enhance their lessons. And the first thing I shared with them was, after this lesson, there's going to be a number of children here who are published authors, whose writing is going to leave this classroom and enter the world of the internet, and people all over the world will be able to read your writing just like a published author. So the excitement in the classroom was quite palpable, and it was quite easy to see that I already had quite a good level of engagement in a class that was challenging to engage. And we completed a writing lesson, and then I did exactly as I said, and I shared their writing online with the world of Pobble, and with all the schools and all the learners that are out there, I shared their writing with them. Within a few days, one of the learners who had shared their writing managed to get a comment put on their writing from Japan. Now, for a small school in Fife in Scotland, for these children to think that someone in Japan had read their writing and had looked at their writing, and then not only done that, then left a comment to say that they loved their writing and left them feedback. This was absolutely amazing for the children in my class. The level of excitement in the classroom was outstanding. And from that point forward, I never had to try and motivate children in my class to write again. The prospect of using Pobble every week in their learning was just amazing for them. One of the things that I had noticed quite quickly after bringing Pobble into my writing lessons was whenever I put writing on the visual timetable, someone would see that on the timetable as they came in through the door, and they would say, "Are we using Pobble?" And if we were using Pobble, that was it. Everybody was set. They were running around the room telling each other they were using Pobble, and someone's writing was going to go on the internet. And for them, that was just it. And from that point forward, I realized this is something that I need to stay with. This is something we need to keep using. And we expanded its use from that point out into the school, and we became a full Pobble school after that point. Now, one of the things we went through as a staff, and one of the things we went through as a school improvement journey, was success, and looking at this concept of success. And one of the 4 capacities of the Curriculum for Excellence, which is the Scottish curriculum, is one of the parts of it is called being a successful learner. So for our school, we were looking at how can we show success? How can we empower the children to know what success looks like so that they can make clearer links in their learning and clearer steps forward in their learning? And Pobble fit the bill for this perfectly. You'll have already heard one of the other panelists mention a waggle, what a good one looks like. And that was incredibly powerful for that school improvement journey that we went on, having this ability in all our classrooms throughout the school to be able to share with learners what success looked like. So through our learning intentions and our success criteria, we were able to model what we were looking for as teachers for the learning that we were carrying out in the classroom at that time, using waggles from the Pobble website. Now, one of the things I was quick to realize with this is using another child's writing as an example for success, which more often than not would come from children who were the same age and stage of learning as the learners I would have in my classroom and my colleagues would have in their classroom. That was quite a powerful thing, because I think one of the things I would do quite often, and I'm sure other teachers in the chat will agree with this, when you're trying to share with children what you're looking for, what success looks like, more often than not, you will model the writing. More often than not, you'll type something up or you'll write something on the whiteboard. This is what I'm looking for, guys. And for me, there was this shift in the room of, well, yeah, of course you know what to do, Mr. Piplado. You're a teacher. We'd be worried if you didn't know what to do. And my ability to be able to show them what success like was almost quite esoteric. It was beyond where they were at that stage. But then to be able to actually shift that up and change that and actually say, well, I'm not going to share my writing with you. I'm going to share a little boy's or a little girl's writing from another school in another part of the world who's the same age as you, who's produced a piece of writing similar to you. They've been working on recounts. They've been working on a narrative. They've been working on an explanation text. And let's have a look at their writing to see if they have achieved our success criteria. Some of the ways I would do that is yes, the children who were sharing had met the success criteria in our class, and look at the ways we've done that, and let's analyze the text to see what they've done. But sometimes they hadn't, and whoa, they haven't met the success criteria in our lesson. What feedback would you give them? So they are now peer assessing someone's learning that they've not even met, that's made possible through the Pobble website, and being able to share success with them in this way was a huge shift in the room in terms of relevance to the children, and you could see the engagement went up again. We are now looking at learning that belongs to children our age. We are now sharing learning on this Pobble platform that we've done in class, and we have people commenting on our writing from other parts of the world who are giving us feedback. We're getting peer assessment from children in other parts of the world, from teachers in other parts of the world. We are just enhancing this data collection that's going on in our classroom of what good learning looks like and how we can use these examples of success to to drive our learning forward and to move our learning forward in our classrooms. And then moving on into the lesson planning tool. So I started my Pobble journey back in the days where there was no lesson planning tool, and all Pobble gave you at the time was the waggles and the ability to share your own writing. And so moving to the stage where we now have the lesson planning tool, for me, it's like having your cake and eating it. You've got this amazing tool that gives you the power to share their children's learning, to give it a purpose, to give their writing lesson a why. Why are we doing this? It's not just for learning, it's so we can become authors. And we've also got the ability to share success and to look at what success could look like and analyze it and drive our learning forward, our success criteria. And now, as a teacher, I've got a lesson planning tool as well. I've got the ability to make a very engaging, bright, exciting lesson in a very adaptable, user-friendly way that gives me access to a wonderful lesson structure using the different slides that Rachel had mentioned previously, sorry, Louise had mentioned previously. And it gives me access to the resources that there are literally thousands of them out there that can fit with my learning, that can give my learning an extra edge to enhance it. But the thing that I love most about the lesson planning tool is it still lets me be the teacher. What I've experienced in the past with using other software platforms and other electronic software packages that you can use in school is some of that power is removed from you and you are just clicking boxes to give children either consolidation work or reinforcement work or something like that. Pobble still lets me be the teacher. Pobble still is giving me the power to be a good teacher, to be an effective practitioner, to use my skill set as a teacher to give my children the very best lesson. And it just does that in a very user-friendly, bright, engaging way. And the standard of resources that are in the lesson planning tool are outstanding. You guys are probably familiar with Pobble 365. Those beautiful photographs and those beautiful art prints that are used in there are just throughout the lessons and the resources that you have access to as a Pobble user. And for me, there just is no other place I would go to plan a writing lesson, to build a writing lesson for now in my practice. And many of my colleagues would agree the same way. And as my colleague earlier in the panel had mentioned, this ability to now share with the pupils and now have pupils accessing Pobble lessons and Pobble materials at home is just a game changer, especially when we think about the year we've just had as teachers all over the world, trying to give our learners the best that we can, but from a very much longer distance than we're used to. So the lesson planning tool is just kind of the cherry on the cake for me. It's such a wonderful thing. But as I say, my journey started with this ability to give writing a purpose in a classroom. And I think that's something that should never be underestimated as a teacher. If you can give learning a purpose and give it a why to motivate and engage your learners, then you're on to a winner. And Pobble really, really helps you do that. And that is what I wanted to share with you tonight, guys. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Mark. I think there was a couple of technical, I'm not sure the slides were moving forward for everybody, but I really feel that people got the main gist of that journey. And I think the closing point you made about the purpose, again, that is where Pobble started. And as you saw in the graphic earlier, it's all about children knowing their writing is going to go somewhere. But it's been great to hear you mention some of those other fantastic tools along the way as well. So to finish off with, I'm going to introduce our third panelist. And I know Rachel will almost certainly talk about the publishing side of Pobble. Rachel joins us as a school leader. I'm certain she will tell you a little bit about her journey. She'll give you the bigger picture of the sort of writing priorities within her school. And I know Rachel will also be available at the end to answer any questions as well, in the same way that Mark and Louise are. I realise we're racing through time. But yeah, obviously, Rachel, I want you to take your full 10 minutes because I know people will want to hear from you. And if there are questions, I will try to deal with them through the chat. So Rachel, I will hand over to you. I've been very fortunate to work with you now for the last 2 years. Always enjoy hearing you talk about your school. And I'm sure our attendees today will enjoy hearing from you too.
Oh, thank you so much. I think I'm going to go like Mark and turn my camera off when I share my screen. I'm sure everybody knows what it's like to go last in a staff meeting or in a presentation. And I do apologise if I start to regurgitate what the other panelists have actually said. I have been with Pobble for a couple of years now. We first sort of linked up when I was in my previous school, and you know, they were just starting on their journey, and it was definitely, as the other two panelists say, it was all about giving a purpose for writing, and that's really what sort of drew that attraction in the very beginning. I changed schools to be a school leader, and when I joined the school, our writing was in a very different place to what it is now. We had to do a real shift in the aspect of making sure our teachers knew how to teach writing, and really upskill the children that had really not had opportunities to write. The school that I moved to was also quite heavy EAL, and so we had a lot of challenges, and what we were looking for was certainly making sure that we found the right platforms and the right edutech that could support us. And very much what Mark said earlier, we were looking for things that would support us being better teachers, rather than just a click and drag and a play a video type of thing. And that's exactly where Pobble really did come into its own. Pobble for me, and using it in school, the impact it can have, as we've all mentioned, it gives that purpose for writing. My big thing with Pobble is it really is a community, and that can be anything from somebody in the Pobble community putting a shout out on Twitter saying, oh, we're delighted that we've just published our writing, and then of course you do, as a Pobble champion or someone that's really passionate about the platform, you make sure that you maybe drop that in as your starter or your finisher. Look up St John's Primary in Belfast, and let's comment on their writing today, because you know that that school is just starting their journey, and like the others have said, to get those comments from not just your peers or your school or your parents, because Pobble obviously is going directly to parents as well, but to get it from all around the world is nothing short of a light bulb moment for children. For us, the impact it's had, you know, obviously Pobble has really improved its platform and its element of support year on year. The opportunity to have that peer and self-reflection, the new moderation tools where you don't have to stick all that work into your bag and make it the journey maybe 45 minutes to the school that's holding moderating, you know, that really can be done digitally now. The resources keep on coming. It's not a case of the fact that, well, there are 365 photos on Pobble 365 and that's it. It is constantly evolving and constantly putting the children and the teachers first. You know, it's not just gimmicky, it really is useful. Every time we get together, as Pobble champions, or my English lead and I sit down, you know, there's like, oh my goodness, have you actually seen what Pobble have got now? Because it is something that you think that is fabulous and I can use that right here, right now. It's time saving, and certainly for me as a school leader, it was fantastic at really raising our CPD for our staff. A really part of the backbone of how we tackled to improve our writing. Obviously, everybody's been talking about a waggle. If you are new to Pobble, it means what a good one looks like. And the waggles are, you know, they're that diamond fairy dust of Pobble. They can be used in so many ways by teachers and by children. I sat in on a planning meeting literally a couple of weeks ago at the front of a topic, and the teachers were literally, it's just second nature. They've got Pobble open, they're searching through for different ideas linked to the age band, having a look at what other people have done within that topic. So it's not just children that are using waggles, it's the teaching staff as well. Children adore playing teacher, certainly in our school. They love to up level and, you know, really improve a piece of writing. Equally, they love to magpie and steal a few ideas. It's such an enjoyable experience to watch children really raise their bar when they're self-reflecting or peer reflection is in. And like I said in the chat, you know, when it first kicked in, children were very much nice work or well done. And that's totally evolved now. And they are so much more knowledgeable. You know, you're getting comments like, fantastic poem, your first paragraph was so powerful, using simile. So they're becoming far more aware of structure and content. It is high impact lessons to motivate, and obviously, you know, this is again what my other two panelists have been talking about. The quality is really up there, the images, the ideas, the, you know, the opening sentences that you've got that you can sort of drip feed in at different opportunities. It's wonderful for just having that holiday top up. It's that personal choice, the homework's there, it's done, and you know that it's the quality. And I think that quality has consistently been there with Pobble. It is very much a community, and we're very fortunate in my school to have a lot of tech. We're one-to-one iPads, and we're heavily invested in the right type of technology. But the thing I really love about Pobble is that it is such a community. We're always sort of shouting out for each other. We're there to support each other. And that's really how, as a platform, they come over as a team. You know, the resources are there. And just as you're about to think, oh gosh, I really should put something together for Eco Day, or I need to get a little bit more going for Book Day, or for the summer holidays, all of a sudden you'll find that a non-screen activity has popped into your inbox. And so there's always things sort of being added in that you literally think you've got to go and make, and instantly they're reading your mind and they're there for you. I'm a firm believer of tech. I like it a lot, and I'm also a firm believer that it shouldn't be standalone. And that great saying of no man is an island, but I genuinely feel that no edutech should be either. But Pobble is a really great backbone partner. And we really do combo up with Pobble. We don't often, sometimes we have it as a starter, etc., and we use it in different ways, but we do genuinely use it in a combination. You know, this was, I'm going to run through a couple of lessons that I was watching in the past couple of weeks. So the children were using Padlet to create a word bank, and that was children that are online at home and face-to-face learning in the classroom, all working together to create a word bank for the grammar purpose that they were having. The next stage was that they'd already pre-selected, or the teacher had pre-selected some waggles for them. So they were then going to have a look at that independently and magpie out some different ideas. And then finally, they go on and write their own mousetrap, writing and publishing on Pobble, following up with peer feedback. So a lovely way to enrich the children's learning with Pobble at the centre, but being supported by other edutech. This was another great example that I saw the other day. A lovely virtual school visit where Thomas Fariner jumped in on Zoom to talk to the class. The children then followed that sort of 20-minute Zoom with, again, searching for vocabulary and further information for their non-fiction writing. They then went on to write their own newspaper report for the Great Fire of London, and we finished it off using Chatterpix. So the eyewitness statements that they'd used in their newspaper reports were then put into a Chatterpix so that somebody could be doing the talking side. Yeah, children can, and they get to know the platform and they love it. They want to use it, like both my panelists have said, all the time, and they can use it anytime and anywhere. And what we've really been enjoying seeing over the year and through lockdown and everything, that children are using it as a choice. So, you know, we've had numerous parents go on and say, oh, I popped in to find out if they were doing their sort of bedtime reading, and they had their iPad, and we were like, you know, you're not allowed that. but they were actually just reading other children's writing for nothing other than reading for pleasure. And it was really a lovely trend to see that our children are using it independently. I think recognition and praise, you know, all of us as teachers know how vital and how important that is. Pobble are great, and there's badges and there's certificates, and obviously the joy of publishing your work, which is available to the world. You know, we certainly have certain children that love tracking how many views their work has had, and they're forever, you know, we have a big Pobble board in our school, and we've had people we've got a soapbox situation where they can book time for public speaking, and we've had people give a sort of a London Crier shout out to promote their work on Pobble to get their views up, etc. But it gives them, like everybody said, a reason to write. It alerts parents so that they've got that instant hit of what their child has published. It creates that dialogue between home and school. Comments can be done obviously online by other staff members, and we allocate time within our school for previous class teachers to always check in on their Pobble writing. So you'll have maybe if you're in year 5 now, your year 4 teacher commenting and really talking about the targets and improvement. And it really has given us accelerated progress and attainment in our writing. And that's been a 2-year journey. Yes, after 1 year, absolutely, we were on track. But after that 2nd year, we are pushing the boundaries with our writing now. I suppose it is supporting writing all over the world, and coming from an international setting. We have Arabic as a core subject in the Middle East, and so we actually use Pobble not just for English, but also for Arabic writing. And it's wonderful in the fact that it's worked equally as well for the Arabic language, and so I could not see why for any reason that it wouldn't work with any other modern foreign languages as well.
Rachel, I'm just going to give you 1 more minute if that's okay.
Yeah, this is it. I promise, sorry. Okay, so Pobble cost, yes, absolutely, so reasonable to get on with it. I feel like it's a piece of the puzzle. It's the reason for writing. It's ways to compare and opportunities for planning and moderation. I think balance is really important because it actually gives time back to the teachers. It's massive for supporting writing targets. Praise, obviously, like we've talked about, near and far. And the best and most important thing is it's easy to use. And because it is easy to use for children and for teachers, it's used over and over and over again. And I think that's it. Sorry. Yes, done. I'll stop sharing. Done.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Rachel. And yeah, I'm really, big thank you to all 3 presenters tonight. What we tried to do in today's session is actually to get a real balance. Louise obviously in the classroom, Mark on his journey and how he's seen Pobble evolve and focusing on some of those aspects that are important in every classroom, you know, audience and purpose, planning exciting lessons. And then Rachel coming at it obviously as a school leader, definitely with a bit more access to tech than probably some of us have. But again, also sharing some of those real benefits to her teachers and also most importantly to your students as well. So thank you all. So just based on some questions and some feedback from the chat, I'm just going to take 5 minutes or so, if that's okay. And I appreciate some people might need to dash, just to show you very quickly a couple of aspects of Pobble, and then also to really explain to you your next steps. We are going to be sending through some follow-up information, and we have provided a really nice 1-page document for you, with the hope that some of you will also be really keen to join Rachel and Mark and Louise as part of the Pobble community. And I know those presenters are also sharing their social media details in the chat as well, if you do want to reach out to them. So I'm going to briefly share my screen again. Do bear with me a moment. And I'm going to leap into the platform. So just very briefly, it really builds on lots of what Rachel and Mark and Louise at the very beginning mentioned. Within the main Pobble platform, there is, to begin with, just lots and lots of content. So we have everything from real examples of children's work. You heard us mention success criteria. Not only can you use preloaded versions, you can build your own, you can differentiate them. It's all built through our own lesson building tool. We've got our own word bank slide. Again, I spent hours on things like PowerPoint and Keynote making word banks. There's a word bank slide builder within the Pobble platform. Lots of you have heard of Pobble 365. You've possibly accessed it on a separate website before. The great news is that within the Pobble platform, not only can you access the lessons and present them really easily, they're also editable as well, which is a really important change. And then again, building upon some of the things that Mark and Louise said, we have this whole vast array of new content, everything from topic-based lessons, Pobble News, Quick Write, which are very topical, all the way through to lesson starters, which Louise mentioned, for supporting those sort of word punctuation strands of the curriculum. And if you are interested to see that as a sort of overview, there's a curriculum map document to support that. Now, alongside that, of course, there are many other features of Pobble, and we're probably the best place to find out more about becoming a Pobble school is the Pobble for My Schools page. There's a very short video which highlights some of the resources mentioned tonight. And going through the page, there's our school leader document, which I believe Anna will send you a link to, but also going into a bit more detail of those 4 aspects of Pobble that I mentioned at the beginning. And probably the bit that had the little bit of air, or the least airtime, was this brand new online moderation tool that Pobble has. So if you are currently thinking about moderation in your school, wondering how on earth you're going to do that this year, having not done it for a little while, Pobble has a brilliant tool to support that. So I would encourage you to delve into the platform and explore that in a bit more detail as well. If you do have a little bit more time, if you click into our training and support page, there is a whole raft of videos. For example, if you want to try out the lesson builder, you want to watch videos of people making lessons, you want to hear more about the publishing. Again, there's a lot more information within that training and support area as well. Now, as mentioned, as a thank you for coming along today, we are going to send through some follow-up information. And of course, we'd love you to join us in the Pobble community. It's that time of year for many of you when you're thinking ahead to next year. I suspect writing will be an area of focus for lots of you, which is probably why you joined today's webinar. And we realise, of course, on the back of all of the lockdown and all of the COVID challenges, that writing has been quite badly hit in a majority of the schools that we support. So we're going to send you this one-page guide. It really outlines everything that you get as part of becoming a Pobble school. Really importantly, it outlines how we support you, the training, that's all free. We offer sessions every single week. And then most importantly, a webinar code, which is giving you Pobble at a discounted cost. Now, again, I appreciate that tonight you've not seen a great demo of Pobble. You've heard lots of great stories. You've heard of how schools are using it. And one thing we will offer you the opportunity to do is to also book a conversation with myself so that I can go into the platform in a bit more detail if required. But most importantly, listen to you. What are your challenges in your school? Which aspects of the Pobble platform will best support you? But again, this document gives you a really nice overview of everything that is available as part of the Pobble platform. And again, Anna will possibly share a link with that now, but we will also share a link with you in a follow-up email. And really just to finish off with, before I ask the delegates a couple of questions that have come through, appreciating that some of you may need to join, I will just leap back to my slides. Again, yeah, you will get that one-page document. The Pobble for Schools link will be shared in the chat as well. And then just to reinforce that there is an offer available for all attendees for tonight that are interested in using Pobble moving forward. And that offer is valid until the end of the month. We give you the remainder of this term for free as well, so you can get everything set up in order to hit the ground running in August, September, depending upon when it is that your school does return. I appreciate we've got some international visitors who are also missed year at the moment. We would extend that offer to you as well. So that concludes the actual presentation. I appreciate that some questions have come through via the chat. So I'm just going to take a quick minute to review them. One question in particular talked a lot about the publishing. How do we ensure the children get positive comments? Just to say that all of the comments on Pobble are moderated. We're fully GDPR compliant. So in terms of setting up pupils, in terms of publishing work, in terms of moderating comments, that's obviously something we take very seriously. We align that, of course, with the moderation piece as well. And again, we also provide really useful pupil tools to support the children leaving each other better quality comments. We do it through something called like a feedback sandwich. But again, it allows the children to really think about what they are saying to their peers, both in their own school, but also other schools that they connect with through the platform as well. I'm going to reference back to the questions. I'll just see if any more questions have come through. Somebody asked about content. We are, as Rachel mentions, by signing up for the Pobble website, we do send you a newsletter with some really useful links every week. One of those links, I believe next week or the week after, we've got National Writing Day coming up. We've also got lots of, I'm a keen sportsman, if you can see the football shirts in the background, the Euros, the Olympics. So there's going to be lots of sports themed lessons coming onto the platform very shortly as well. So in terms of the content, we are adapting, we are adding to that content all of the time. I will just take a look to see if there are any more questions. A few people have asked about becoming a Pobble school. Anna has now shared that document in the chat. So do feel free to click on that link and download a copy of that document. And Anna has also shared with you my meeting link if you were keen to have a follow-up conversation with me as well. I think that is it in terms of questions. I'm mindful we still have lots of people on. So to bring the webinar to a close, I'm just going to bring in my panelists one last time. I always like to, having bombarded people with lots of information, Rachel, Louise and Anna, and Mark, I'm not sure if Mark is still there, he might have gone away. Rachel, maybe to you first. Just in writing in general, is there one top tip that you would share with delegates? So you've shared lots of amazing information today, lots of great ways that your school has improved writing. But I appreciate today lots of people are thinking about their strategy for next year. So as a school leader, if you were to share one thing, what would it be?
I think just making sure that there's opportunities to write everywhere, whether it's homework, whether it's, chalk on the playground, whether it's a quick write for 5 minutes. Take the fear of writing away and encourage children just to go for it. I think it's the ethos we go for.
Thanks, Rachel. That's brilliant advice. And Louise, maybe coming to you next, if that's okay.
Yeah, so many to choose from, but I think my main thing would be to be enthusiastic about writing as a teacher and just be super creative with it in any genre.
Brilliant. Thanks, Louise. That's brilliant. And I think just building on that point, and it came across in the presentation, there is lots of content in Pobble, but I really like, and it's always nice listening to other people, that fact that you still feel in control as a teacher. I think Mark said it really well. You can adapt. It's your lesson. You can use everything that's there, but you can edit and adapt. And I think the really good teachers I see do that. They've got a really clear vision of where they're going, and they know the tools that they need along the way. So yeah, thank you, Rachel. And thank you, Louise. Mark, I'm not sure whether you are still there. I think Mark may have dropped out. Well, at that point, everybody, I will bring the session to a close. There was a question around where do I find out more information about costs, etc. in the website. The Pobble Schools page I am on. If you've seen enough already and you don't need to speak to me, you can simply click on Become a Pobble School on that page and use the webinar code as mentioned in the document that you will be sent. It is webinar 600, I believe. So if you've seen enough and you're ready to move forward, you can do that directly through that Pobble Schools page or the pricing page as well. Really do appreciate you all joining us. As mentioned, if you were with us at the very beginning of the webinar, we have been recording the session and we will be sharing that with you within the next couple of days. Please do feel free to share it with other colleagues. We will be running future events, of course, so do look out for those. If you're joining from a mat, we're going to be running an event in a couple of weeks' time, specifically looking at how Pobble will support a group of schools wanting to work together. The moderation piece will take a little bit more of a focus in that particular session. And of course, as mentioned a number of times, if you have specific questions about your school, you can drop us an email or you can book in a call with myself. Really do appreciate you joining us. Look forward to connecting with lots of you moving forward. Anna, who's joined us today, thanks for a great job of running the chat, is also very active on social media, on all forums. So do give us a follow. And thank you again, Rachel, Mark and Louise, for giving up your time to help run today's session. We look forward to hopefully welcoming lots of you to the Pobble community soon. Thanks, everybody.